Good afternoon. Welcome to today's advisor forum. Today is our advisor forum that the Academic Advising and Transfer Center partners with the Graduate College. So this one is going to also appeal to our graduate advisors on campus. My name is Ross Hawkins. I'm the director of the Academic Advising and Transfer Center. Today's session, Advising Graduate Students, Policies and Practices for Grad Degree Completion, is being presented by Dr. Carissa Holscher, Associate Dean of the Graduate College. Carissa, thank you for being here and your willingness to present. I'm going to go through a couple quick announcements before we get started with the forum. As a reminder, if you do wish to receive Master Advisor credit for today's session, please enter your name and your department in the chat feature. Today's advisor forum will be recorded and posted on the Mo State Advising YouTube channel within the next week. So if you know of someone who could benefit from the information that will be shared today, please let that person know or those individuals know to check out the Mo State Advising YouTube channel and remind those individuals that they can receive Master Advisor credit for watching a recorded session as long as they use the custom submission feature on the advisor certification database. We will have one more advisor forum this semester on Wednesday, May 1st. There will be a session on using proactive advising and academic planning to better serve our advisees. That session will be presented by Carmen Ketchum Brewer, an academic advisor and retention specialist in the College of Business Advisement Center. Again, that one will be via Zoom as well. I also wanted to mention that we also have the advising workshops coming up in May. So if you know individuals who could benefit from attending the Advising Basics workshop or the Master Advisor workshop, those workshops will be held on Monday, May 13th and Tuesday, May 14th. Advising Basics will be Monday, May 13th from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. and that will be in Meyer Library, room 206. The Master Advisor Workshop will be on Monday, May 13th from 1 to 5, and on Tuesday, May 14th from 8:15 to 4:30, again in Meyer Library 206. Individuals can register for the workshops on the Academic Advising and Transfer Center website by logging into the certification database. I also wanted to mention that soon I will start planning advisor forums for the fall 2024 semester. So if you have an idea for a topic, please feel free to send me an email. I'm always looking for ideas. If you are doing something that you would like to share with the advising community, you are welcome to send that idea as well. I would love to have some individuals who would want to present to the advising community. So again, please reach out to me either this spring or early into the summer. I will try to have the fall schedule series planned typically by the start of the fall semester. Again, thank you all for joining today's advisor forum. Carissa, I will turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thanks again for having me, Ross. I remain really thrilled about the partnership between the AATC and the Graduate College. Just to take the opportunity to remind people that graduate advising is also happening on this campus, and it's happening at really excellent levels. We have some fantastic colleagues advising in this space. And so I'm thrilled to share some of the tips and tricks that we have for advising graduate students. Let me get my screen share going again. And let's see. I also want to just shout out to how many of you joined the call and then immediately turned your camera off. That's like my go-to vibe on Zoom calls. So yeah, I'm among my people here. But please feel free to continue to leave your camera off, but engage with me as you see fit. I want this to be informal and helpful to you. So if you have questions as I'm going through some of this material, please feel free to put it in the chat and I'll do my best to keep an eye on that. And then just as a sort of help to me here, I want to sort of get a sense for how many of you are currently advising graduate students. So don't worry, you don't have to turn your camera on, but could you give me a thumbs up reaction? I'm looking at the participant list. Could you give me a thumbs up reaction if you are currently advising graduate students? All right, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up roll in. Fantastic. Great. Okay. And then I see lots of you who don't have your thumbs up, and I'm thrilled that you're here. That means that you maybe are not currently advising graduate students, but you're at least graduate student curious. And so what I hope to do today is to provide you an overview of some of the things that we've got going on in the graduate college, and just more information about our graduate student population. And so to that end, I want to start with an overview of graduate education at Missouri State. I really like to take this opportunity to sort of set the tone for what's currently happening with graduate education at Missouri State, because I know when I was a graduate program director, I didn't really have a good sense of how my program fit into a larger picture of graduate education on our campus. And so, and by the way, I should sort of, as a way of introducing myself, let you all know, as Ross said, I'm Carissa in the graduate college. I'm the associate dean here in the graduate college, but prior to my role here, I was the graduate program director for the MA in communication in the now called Communication, Media, Journalism, and Film department. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about talking about advising graduate students, because I spent some of my time previously doing that. And I really, really feel strongly about providing excellent advising at all levels, and in particular for our graduate students. So with that being said, just a brief overview of what we do here in the graduate college. I get this question a lot. What do y'all do in the graduate college? And to be frank, I didn't always know before I joined the graduate college. And so I tried to provide for you a picture of the graduate college team here. I think it's a common misperception of what exactly we do. And so there's really three main areas in the graduate college here. The first is graduate program and student support. And so this is where I spend most of my time. This is where our advising partnership comes into play. We also have Lisa Taylor, who oversees our funding programs for travel and research funding. We have Christy Graham, who I will reference probably 18 times today because she is our resident curriculum and graduation specialist. And if you have spent any amount of time working with graduate students, you know Christy's name well. She clears every single graduate student for graduation, and she is an extreme help to our graduate advisors. We have Philip Raleigh and Sarah Hare, who work in the reception area of the graduate college offices, and they provide GA support. And so if you have questions about our graduate assistantship program, policies, rules, those are your go-to folks. And I'm excited to announce that we have a new position, a brand new coordinator of marketing and recruitment who will be starting within the next month or so. So we're expanding our program and student support team. And then we do have a separate team focused on graduate admissions and records. Amber McBride is the director of that. She has Kristen and Lori, who are evaluators. And then we have a couple of part-time folks who help with transcript assistance. And then I think one of the areas that is perhaps not as well known in terms of where it fits in is we have graduate interdisciplinary programs, which I think I saw Warren on the call. Shout out to Warren. We have 4 different graduate programs housed in GIP. Jerry Masterson is the director of graduate interdisciplinary programs. And while, of course, Jerry doesn't report directly to the dean of the graduate college, we work closely with GIP on a lot of partnerships. And Warren is the advisor who oversees all of the programs under the GIP umbrella. And so I wanted to start by giving you a picture of who we are and what we do. And so we like to say that the grad college team works primarily under these umbrellas, but we all help each other out. And all of us really take our role seriously in the sense of understanding that we are in a symbiotic relationship with all of you. We engage in administration and program support, but you all are the ones who are offering those academic programs at the graduate level. And so if we don't have a good relationship with you, graduate education at Missouri State suffers. And so please take note of all of the people that you see on this slide and reach out to us with questions. Any feedback you have for us, we're all here to help you. And so please take that seriously. I also like to sort of give an overview of what the graduate student population looks like at Missouri State. Again, this was something I didn't really know until I entered the graduate college. And so here are our graduate enrollment trends. As you can see, we've been on an uphill climb for the last 7 years. We set enrollment records the last 7 falls. So we have almost 4,300 graduate students as of fall 2023. And what's particularly important to us is that our credential seeking, so degree seeking, certificate seeking numbers have also increased to sort of narrow that gap. We've had historically quite a large number of non-degree seeking graduate students who are exploring classes, and we've really been working hard at getting them connected to graduate certificates or programs that make the most sense for them. So we're excited to see that gap shrinking. I will let you know that our graduate enrollment saw a dip for the first time in 7 years this spring semester. There's a whole slew of reasons for that, and our graduate program directors are across campus are working really, really hard at making sure that our enrollment stays strong, and we've had a good historical trend here. Our team also processes every single application to graduate programs, and those have also been increasing. And so for the last cycle, we had just shy of 5,500 applications, every single one of which has to have a transcript review by our team. And so we work hard at making sure that those application reviews are happening quickly so that the programs can make timely admission recommendations to all of us. Just in terms of our demographics, who our graduate students are. I had a fun little animation there that I wasn't expecting. About 56% of our graduate students are part-time. And interestingly, if we remove the McQueary College of Health and Human Services from this data, that part-time number would shoot up because most of our health and human services graduate programs are full-time resident programs. And so outside of McQueary, the vast majority of our graduate students are part-time, which means they come with a lot of challenges, life demands, juggling different priorities that graduate advisors have to be aware of, and that they're a little bit different from the undergraduate population in that way. The majority of our graduate students are female. That percentage is right on line with national trends for graduate education. And so we are, just like at the undergraduate level, working hard to attract more male students to our graduate programs. And then I think this is interesting too. The vast majority of our graduate students come from the state of Missouri, but our biggest piece of the pie in terms of growth here is coming from our international student population. We have a handful of graduate programs that are really, really popular for international students, and we're working hard to partner with them to, again, make sure that advising graduate students who are international, that we give them the priority and the skills that they need to be equipped to handle the change to a U.S. graduate program. One of the areas where I'm particularly passionate is the percentage of our students who are domestic underrepresented. This is a relatively low percentage. Only 13% of our students are domestic underrepresented. And what we mean by that is any graduate student who is a U.S. citizen and not white, they would be in this category. And so we have work to do here to engage in more inclusive admissions practices. And we've been really focusing on that with our Graduate College Inclusive Excellence Committee, with a fellow focused on inclusive admissions practices. We really want to see this number tick up. And so it's a population we care a great deal about. In case you're curious, our distribution by college is, I think, an interesting one. For the last several years, the McQueary College of Health and Human Services and the College of Business have sort of gone back and forth in terms of who happens to have the biggest piece of the pie here. But I think it's also interesting to note that graduate interdisciplinary programs now represents almost 20% of our graduate enrollment. And so these are the four programs that Warren and Jerry oversee, and they've seen tremendous growth in the last few years. College of Education has been growing well. Our cash has also seen some significant growth, and I'm excited to say that, of course, CNAS and the College of Ag too have really strong, particularly research-focused graduate programs. But the library, if you're wondering, why is the library up there? The library has a certificate program at the graduate level now, and it's seen some great interest and growth there. So I am excited to see that sliver of the pie grow as we move forward. We are primarily a master's granting institution, so almost 80% of our graduate students are enrolled in a master's program. 12% are enrolled in one of our professional doctorate programs, and 10% are enrolled in a certificate only. So a big number of our master's and doctoral students may also be pursuing a certificate at the graduate level, But if that is the case, they are subsumed in that piece of the pie. So the 10% that you see in the certificate piece are pursuing only a graduate certificate. And we're seeing a lot of success with graduate students coming to us, starting with a certificate to try it out and see if they're interested in a broader graduate degree. In terms of modality of degree, this is, I think, another interesting one. Back in the early 2000s, the vast majority of our graduate degrees were traditional seated programs. And I can't for the life of me figure out what happened in 2020, but we saw that flip where most of our students were taking primarily online classes. And we're seeing that come back together. And I suspect that this will be the trend for the foreseeable future, that about half and half. Half of our students are primarily online and half are traditional. And again, I would encourage you to think about these demographics that you're seeing, how it might influence how we advise graduate students. And so, of course, especially if you advise at the undergraduate level, students who are enrolled primarily in online classes, what kinds of considerations that may bring up for advising. And the same is true at the graduate level. So that's just sort of a broad overview of who our graduate student population is. And I hope sort of sets the tone for what this population looks like and how we might engage in better advising for our graduate students. So to that end, I just have a couple of questions for you. When it comes to advising in particular, just take a moment to think about in what ways are graduate students different from undergraduate students? And in what ways are they similar? So here's the point where I'd love to hear from some of you. If you are maybe brave enough to unmute or pop into the chat some things that come to mind for you. What's different about graduate students when it comes to advising? I have lots of years of teaching experience, so I'm really good at wait time, and I'll give you as much as I need. What comes to mind for you about what's different about graduate students when it comes to advising? Paul, thank you. Thesis mentoring. Yes, that's huge. That is a big one. A good percentage of our graduate students do engage in writing a thesis, which is a massive undertaking for students. And that certainly doesn't happen at the undergraduate level. Thank you, Paul. Anything else come to mind? More life responsibilities, Hillary? Absolutely, yes, especially when you consider that about half of our students are taking online classes. More independent, tend to come to advising meetings more prepared. Yep. Yeah, wonderful. You've got thoughts rolling in now. They are busy. It's more of a challenge to connect. Absolutely. Other thoughts about what makes them different? See if I have any other thoughts roll in. Tighter deadlines. Yep, that is true. Yes, I found this particularly challenging as a graduate program director. When you only have students for 2 years, it's really hard to make sure that you're doing everything that you need to get done for them, right? You have to help them shift perspectives that these classes contribute to their professional career. Yes, Tara, that's a great point, one that I want to continue expounding on as we move further. International first gen, non-traditional have some similar challenges. Yep, that is true, Antoinette, absolutely. Yeah, Katie, thank you. Connecting to campus. Graduate students, especially if they are online, have to work harder to connect to campus resources. I think this is very, very true. I am actually an advisor to our graduate student senate, and this is one of the things that we really struggle with is how do we get graduate students plugged in on campus? Yeah. All right, thank you for sharing these thoughts. I really just wanted to sort of see where your head is at in terms of how you interact with graduate students, because they are, in a sense, a unique population, but also not that unique, because some of the challenges that we see at the graduate level also exist at the undergraduate level, as some of you have pointed out. They just maybe exist with more frequency or more intensity. And so really making sure you are understanding the kinds of challenges that your graduate students might bring to the table with advising, I think is important. I'm a big believer in sort of creating our own mental models and thinking through what kinds of challenges we might be presented with before they come to our office. And so thinking through what your students look like, I think is valuable. And so keep these things in mind. What makes graduate students unique? What makes them similar to undergraduate students as we move on, so that you can think about how some of these resources might be helpful to you. When it comes to advising graduate students, the Graduate College is here to help. And our efforts are constantly evolving. One of the biggest ways that we try to help you all engage in your graduate advising is through what we call the Graduate Education Toolkit. So the Grad Ed Toolkit, or we sometimes refer to it as the GET, currently exists on Blackboard as a community, what we call a community in Blackboard. And we try to think of this toolkit as a one-stop shop for graduate advising. And so you can self-enroll into the Graduate Education Toolkit in the community on Blackboard. And I would encourage all of you to do so if you engage with graduate students in any way. And so right now it's a community in Blackboard. We're currently working on transitioning it to Brightspace. And so for a few more months at least, you are welcome to join us in that community on Blackboard. And then we hope that you make the transition with us to Brightspace. And I'll show you in just a minute what all is included on the Graduate Education Toolkit. But one of the things we try to be really mindful of is the fact that we don't always know what struggles or challenges all of you are facing as you are advising graduate students. And so I would strongly encourage you all, as you explore the GET, if you think of something that should be there that isn't, please reach out to us. We are really, really open to your feedback, and we want to know what insights you have that maybe we haven't thought about before. And so please reach out to the Graduate College when you see something that doesn't exist on the Grad Ed Toolkit that you think should be there. So in terms of contents, the toolkit has a whole lot of things. I thought about maybe showing it to you today, but since we're transitioning it to Brightspace, I figured I would wait until that transition is complete so you can see what it's going to look like in Brightspace. But for those of you who are here as graduate program directors, what we call GPDs, we have a whole tab on the toolkit that is focused on onboarding graduate program directors. We're currently in the process of thinking through maybe how we can engage in some orientation sessions for graduate program directors. But because graduate program directors come on board at various times throughout the years, maybe there's retirements or somebody steps back to focus more on teaching or research, GPDs are constantly being onboarded across campus. And so we've tried to provide everything they might possibly need to start their job on the toolkit. We also have a tab focused entirely on admissions. And that is one of the things that's unique about advising graduate students. Those of you who are advising graduate students may also be really heavily involved in the admissions decisions that are happening for your graduate program. And we use GradCast, or some of our programs have a specialty cast that is specific to that kind of academic discipline. And so we have a ton of resources that walk you through how to use our admissions platform. The Graduate College is also engaging in ongoing recruiting and marketing efforts. We try to do recruiting and marketing things that can be passive for the programs themselves. And so there's information about how the Graduate College is marketing your program and how you can help us maybe do so more effectively. We also provide information on how to support international students, a ton of information on our policies and how you can work with them. And I'm going to spend some time today going into some of these policies that I think are most useful to advisors. We've given you information about advising and forms that you will need as a graduate advisor. As Paul mentioned, graduate students actually require a different set of advising, which is how to advise research, whether that's in thesis or seminar papers or standalone projects in a lab. So we give you some tips for how to engage in research advising, a ton of information about our graduate assistants, research funding, where that is available for your students, and how you can make sure that your students are compliant with all of their research guidelines. And then, of course, where they can present their research and our graduate calendar. So there's a ton of information on this toolkit. And usually when we are answering questions for people, we almost always say, that's on the toolkit if you can find it. And so we're working on making sure that everything you might possibly need to advise graduate students exists here for you so that you can go there and use it as a resource. So please know that that's available to you. And would strongly encourage you to join it if you are not already there. And then one of the other things I wanted to mention when it comes to graduate students and how they might be a little bit different from advising undergraduate students. Now, I think the onboarding meeting, the first meeting you have with an advisee, is important for everyone at any level. But for graduate students in particular, especially if they're graduate students who have been with us for a while, maybe they're Missouri State undergraduate students, the onboarding meeting is important for a number of reasons. First, as Ross and his team will tell you in all of their advising workshops, the Master Advising Workshop series, building rapport with your advisees is really important. That has to happen at the graduate level too, even though they might come to you particularly well prepared. But it's also really important to use an onboarding meeting to distinguish the grad school experience from their undergrad experience. One of the things that I saw all the time as a graduate program director was Missouri State undergraduates coming to me for graduate school and being really confused by the fact that as a junior or a senior, they could register for their classes without an advising meeting. But every graduate student requires an advisor release at Missouri State. And so having regular check-ins with an advisor is really important for a graduate student. And sometimes it's hard to sort of reorient students to that. It's also important to talk about what differences they can expect in terms of how graduate classes are going to look a little bit different than undergraduate classes. There's going to be a sort of the onus for learning sits more on the student's shoulder. There's going to be more paper writing in some cases. Fewer assessments throughout the semester. And so helping students sort of know what to expect is really important in that initial meeting. And then standard setting and planning. We have a document that we call the GPS here in the Graduate College, the Graduate Plan of Study, that I'll show you in just a moment. Because somebody else mentioned this in the chat just a few minutes ago, they're here for just a short amount of time, particularly if it's a 2-year master's program or maybe an even shorter graduate certificate program. Because they're with us for just a short amount of time, making sure they have their plan mapped out can become even more important at the graduate level. And then lastly, I think it's important to use the onboarding meeting to begin with the end in mind. And so orienting your students to what kind of graduate program they're in, whether it's a research-focused program, a more advanced workforce development program, a program where they're going to have to sit for an exam at the end. Thinking through what the end of this degree program looks like is really important to graduate students. I know that when I was advising graduate students, I heard all the time from day one, a lot of fear over, am I going to have to write a thesis? Should I start now? And using that onboarding meeting to walk through what the research requirements are for a particular degree, what the culminating experience requirements are, all that is really, really helpful in that onboarding meeting. And so I would encourage all of you who are advising graduate students to spend some time thinking about what are the things that you cover in that meeting and what can you maybe add, take away to make sure it's most effective for your students. And so I mentioned the GPS document, the Graduate Plan of Study. We encourage, this document is available for you to download from the Graduate Education Toolkit. And we encourage every graduate advisor to complete this document with their students in their onboarding meeting, preferably before the end of their first semester, so that they know where they're headed in their plan of study. And then we really strongly encourage you to upload a plan of study to advising notes. This is a feature that the registrar and Ross and folks have added to advising notes to be able to upload a document. It really actually helps the graduate college if there's ever a question that comes up about a specific graduate student, an issue with graduation clearance, we can go in and look at that plan of study to see if something has gone amiss. And so we really encourage you to use that plan of study both to help you track your own advising and then help your students know that what's coming up. So that's the Graduate Education Toolkit and the resources that we try to make available to you at all times. And please, again, give us your feedback as you start to use these resources. Then I wanted to spend sort of the rest of my time with you all today talking through policies that are very specific to the graduate college and graduate students here at Missouri State. So here's a sort of overview of the policies and forms that graduate advisors will use the most. And what I'm trying to do is walk you through each of these and give you sort of our top tips for these processes, because some of them can be a little bit detailed or nuanced. And so I'm just going to walk you through each of these. And again, please feel free to jump into chat, ask questions as I go through all of these, and make this as useful to all of you as possible. So the first is mixed credit and senior permission. So if you don't already work with graduate students, or if you only work with undergraduate students, this is actually important to all of us. Missouri State allows undergraduate students to take graduate credit under certain circumstances. And so we actually had a policy change for this policy in last fall. And we're really excited about this policy because I think it makes graduate advisors' lives a little bit easier with the revisions. So basically, we have 3 different ways that an undergraduate student can enroll in a graduate course. The first is mixed credit accelerated. This is the track that you would take if an undergraduate student, has been admitted to an accelerated program. And to use Julie Masterson's term here, accelerated students are students that we are betrothed to. We have accepted them into a program, but they're not fully a graduate student yet. They won't be until they have the undergraduate degree conferred. And so these students have special permission to take graduate classes that count towards both their graduate and undergraduate program. And there is a specific form for them to fill out. And that form requires graduate college approval so that we can make sure that everything's in place for the course to be applied to their graduate program. Excuse me. We also have mixed credit general. These are students who are not necessarily accepted into accelerated program, but they want to take a graduate level class and have gotten their academic unit's permission for that class to be counted toward their undergraduate program as well. This new form, because of the policy change last fall, this new form may now be submitted directly to the registrar, and the registrar reviews and gives permission to enroll. And then last, senior permission. Senior permission is for students who would like to take the graduate class, but it is not counted towards their undergraduate degree. And so some of you might be asking, well, why would I take senior permission if mixed credit applies to both degrees? Great question. I would direct you to that last bullet point there. Senior permission is not financial aid eligible, while mixed credit is. That's an important thing to know if you're advising graduate students or undergraduate students who hope to become graduate students. And so we usually see senior permission being used when mixed credit hours have been maxed out, or if for some reason there's just a graduate class that a senior really wants to take and they don't have approval for applying it to their undergraduate degree. So a couple of other things that my bullet points in between here. If a student has been accepted to an accelerated graduate program, they can take up to 40% of the hours required for their graduate program as mixed credit. Now, there's an asterisk here on the word max because that does vary by program. So I would encourage all of you to make sure that you are aware of the rules for the specific programs that you're working with. If they are not accepted into accelerated program, they can take up to 6 hours of general mixed credit. We require that students have 90 hours completed and at least a 3.0 before they're eligible for either mixed credit or senior permission. And if they're doing senior permission, they can take up to 12 hours. So mixed credit sort of acts like dual credit on steroids. We think it's a really, really valuable tool for students to save time, save money, test out the graduate waters. And we really want to see our mixed credit numbers increase because we want to show our Missouri State undergraduate students how much we value them sticking around for a graduate degree with us. So if you remember one thing from me today, I hope it is that mixed credit can be an awesome tool for your students. And I would encourage you to look into the specifics for your programs and talk to your students about how they might take advantage of this if they aren't already. There's a couple of common problems we see for mixed credit. It's kind of hairy, right? There's a lot of different rules that you see on the slide here. And so I asked our team, can you help me pinpoint what are some of the most common problems that we see? And so we see missing signatures on the forms or signatures from the wrong person or unit. We worked with the registrar's office to redesign these forms when we made the policy change last fall. And we think they're much clearer now. We've gotten some good feedback, but of course, you're always welcome to share any more feedback with us. But sometimes there is misunderstanding of, let's say that I am a communication student and I want to take a mixed credit class in English. So there's sometimes misunderstanding about whether the English department or the comm department has to approve that mixed credit. And so paying attention to those forms is really, really important. I see a comment from Nathan Haas. I'm pausing to read it. Mixed credit problem, student registers in the undergraduate class instead of graduate class. Thank you. Yes, I'm going to add that to my list, Nathan. So we often see that when a student, if there is a bridge course, maybe a course that has classes at the undergraduate and graduate level, Sometimes students forget that they have the permission to register at the graduate level and register for the undergrad instead, which then, of course, defeats the purpose of mixed credit. So that's a common problem that we see. Thank you, Nathan, for bringing that up. Keep them coming if you have any others. We often see that students submit the form to us without their undergraduate courses listed. So the student really needs to understand what their semester plan is and have everything mapped out on the form. We see a lot of programs doing mixed credit forms in batch, which we think is fantastic. If you can help a big group of students all at once, great, get after it. But oftentimes they're doing a copy paste of M numbers and the M number doesn't match the student. And then one of the things that we see with some regularity, and students call us mid-semester, they still have to go in and actually register for the course after the registrar's office processes the approval. And so the form submission itself doesn't mean that they will actually get registered. So keep that in mind as well. But again, these problems are actually pretty minor when you consider what the benefit is to the student. So I strongly encourage you to think through, how can you help more of your students get enrolled in mixed credit? How can you encourage them to apply for accelerated programs if they qualify? It's a really valuable tool that saves our students time and money. And so please use it. So next up, we have transfer credit for graduate students. I like to categorize this as something else Carissa didn't know until she worked in the graduate college. We do actually allow transfer credit for graduate students. It's not particularly common, but sometimes we have a faculty member join us who wants to bring some graduate students with them. Sometimes a student has a bad experience in a graduate program at another institution. So we do allow graduate students to transfer in credit. I am trying to point you to the policy, the academic policy, where that's appropriate. So keep note of that if it's helpful to you. We approve transfer credit on a case-by-case basis, and we allow students to transfer in up to 30% of their degree. And so if you are a program director or somebody who works with graduate students quite often, please keep this in mind, that they are certainly able to transfer credit in to Missouri State at the graduate level. One common thing we see, one common question we get with transferring graduate credit in, we do require the official transcript indicating graduate level credit. Most of our grad students that have existing graduate work are accepted into a program with their official transcript at the undergraduate level, and then maybe an unofficial transcript showing the graduate work that they've completed. So before we will actually put that graduate work on their degree audit, we have to have the official transcript in hand. So keep that in mind. All right, next up is degree requirements. This is something that varies quite a bit from program to program, but in looking at the participant list, I see a lot of graduate program directors on the call today. And so I would love for any feedback or questions you might have about this. I think sometimes we forget what are the policy-based requirements for what goes into a graduate degree. So I wanted to take some time to share that with all of you. So there's a whole list of degree requirements, graduate program requirements in OP 319-1, but I've pulled out for you the most important. So of course, obviously, to finish your degree, your graduate degree at Missouri State, you have to complete your coursework. Something that not everybody knows, especially if you're spending time advising graduate students, I would encourage you to tuck this nugget away. At least 50% of a graduate student's coursework must be at the 700 level. And so we have a number of bridge courses where the undergraduate course is at the 500 level, the graduate course is at the 600 level, for example. And those courses are great. They're valuable in a lot of ways, but sometimes students get into trouble when they take too many at the 600 level. So as advisors, it's to our students' benefit if we can keep an eye on that. No more than 49% of a student's program may be mixed credit or senior permission. And if you go back a few slides and look at all of the max hours allowed as senior permission or mixed credit, a graduate student or an undergraduate student could actually accumulate quite a few hours at the graduate level. And so again, keeping an eye on that 49% is important. We require a 3.0 GPA in program coursework. And some programs have a higher GPA requirement. And so knowing that requirement is important for advisors. And then there's sort of two things I wanted to draw your attention to that I think there's some broad misunderstanding about. I know I didn't understand it fully. So we require some sort of research component and some sort of culminating assessment for every graduate program on campus. The research requirement very often looks like a thesis or a seminar paper. In my home program, we also had a third option called a professional project. Sometimes it's a capstone, sometimes it's an internship where there's research going on. The graduate college and the academic policy here does not dictate what the research requirement must be. There is no graduate college rule that says all students must write a thesis, for example. That's entirely up to the graduate program. We just require that there is a documented research component. And then same thing goes for the culminating assessment. The graduate college does not require that every graduate degree have a comprehensive exam or a professional project or whatever that might be. We just require that there be some sort of culminating assessment that is distinct from the research requirement. Tara, I see a question. Does the comprehensive exam have to be program generated, or could it be an exam developed externally? It could absolutely be an exam developed externally. The program has complete control on what the culminating assessment should be. And so if the faculty in that program agree on what the culminating assessment is, then the graduate college certainly won't stand in your way. And again, I think this is one of the things that I misunderstood. The graduate college certainly does not require that it be a comprehensive exam. It could be a professional presentation. It could be some other sort of capstone that is distinct from the research requirement. But those are the two things we require: a research component and a culminating assessment. Please keep those questions coming in chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on them. In terms of the research requirement and culminating assessment, I've picked out a couple of things that I think might be good tips for all of you to consider if you're working with graduate students. The first is we do have a seminar report form. This form, it has to be submitted to the graduate college when a student completes a seminar paper or some other non-thesis option. And so it's used only for students pursuing a non-thesis option, because if they're pursuing a thesis, that research requirement is subsumed in the thesis. We do have a lot of programs who are using a research component connected to a course. And so Christy Graham in our office has actually been working with a lot of programs to remove the need for the seminar report form. If you think that applies to you, I would encourage you to reach out to me or to Christy, because we're really embracing the concept of subtract. And so if there is a way that we can streamline clearing your graduate students for graduation, or reduce the number of forms required, but still ensure that that research component is being met, we are really happy to do that. So please reach out to us if you have thoughts or questions about how the research requirement is subsumed within your graduate program. I also want to point out that the seminar report form includes a Z grade removal section. A Z grade is a deferred grade that's unique to graduate credit at Missouri State. Z grades are assigned for theses, seminars, or problem courses where the work may not be completed within a semester. Sometimes it's designed that the work won't be completed within the semester because it might take multiple semesters, for example, to collect data for a thesis. So rather than an incomplete, because that was the design for the course, a faculty member can assign a Z grade and then use the seminar report form to remove the Z grade. We also strongly encourage you, though, if you're assigning Z grades with some regularity in one of these particular types of courses, you can also use the grade change request that the registrar offers. Next up, we have the comprehensive exam form. And again, this is the form used for comprehensive exams, but that's only one type of culminating assessment. And so this form is certainly not required for every student, and it might not be necessary for your program. So again, we would encourage you to take a look at your culminating assessment in your program and see if this form continues to be useful for all of you in terms of tracking that culminating assessment. Exams vary in form and structure across programs. Sometimes the comprehensive exam is you go sit in a quiet room for 3 hours and answer questions. Sometimes it's a presentation. The exam itself really, really varies. But there is a policy, OP 319-6, that says what programs must do if they are requiring a comprehensive exam in their graduate program as the means of their culminating assessment. And that policy says that programs must, one, provide adequate information to promote optimal preparation. In other words, we can't swing this on our students at the last minute. The program must validate any evaluation or scoring procedures. So there needs to be some objectivity that in terms of validating how exams are scored. Students must be provided with detailed feedback. And if a student does not initially pass their exam, the program by policy must offer additional support to prepare them for a second opportunity. And then lastly, if a student does not pass their comprehensive exam the first time around, the program must give them at least one opportunity to reattempt that exam after providing additional support. So again, if you are in a program that uses comprehensive exams, make sure that you're following these policies and giving students the resources they need to be successful in the comprehensive exam. One of the other more common ways of completing the research requirement is, of course, the thesis, which we mentioned earlier is one of the things that is unique to graduate students, the notion of advising a long-term research project at the graduate level. So the graduate college oversees thesis submission and final approval. And we have worked really hard in the last year to refine and improve our thesis submission process and our thesis review process so that advisors are more involved in this part of the graduate student experience and can help students along better. And so we've been doing some thesis orientations every semester. Some of you have been at those. And again, we continue to ask for your feedback on this process. But for those of you who are advising graduate students, one thing to keep in mind is that currently the thesis submission process for the graduate college approval goes through our Blackboard course. And this will be true for all Spring 24 graduates. If you have a graduate student who is currently working on a thesis but is not going to finish in May, they will need to submit their thesis in the new Brightspace course, which has not yet been released, but it is coming. So keep that in mind. That can be a really important nugget for some of your graduate students to know that they might go ahead and get enrolled in the thesis Blackboard course, but they may need to move to Brightspace if they don't finish this semester. There's a couple of assignments in the thesis Blackboard course that the graduate college tracks pretty seriously. These include things like who is on the student's thesis committee so that we can verify that all committee members are graduate faculty members. It includes research compliance. So if there is research being done with human subjects, for example, the thesis requires IRB approval and we require documentation for that. There's 4 different committees where a graduate student must be complying with research compliance. And so we check that pretty seriously. But we are not, the graduate college is not the one saying that this thesis has met the standards of rigor and quality for research in that particular area. That is still up to the graduate program. And we look to the graduate program, the thesis chair, and the thesis committee members for that. The advisor also signs off on whether or not the thesis is of original work. So there is a safe assign review for plagiarism. And we also make sure that the advisor is aware of the formatting requirements that the graduate college provides. If you are regularly advising thesis writers, we would encourage you to take a look at the thesis course gradebook that is provided in the Graduate Education Toolkit on the Research Advisement tab. Christy in our office does a good job of keeping that gradebook up to date so that as an advisor for thesis students, you can go in and see how much of the assignments they have completed in the thesis Blackboard course. And again, we're still in the process of moving all of this over to Brightspace. And so if you have feedback for us as we make that transition, we are certainly open to it. I know I'm kind of all over the board here, but I'm trying to give you tips that I think will be most important to all of you as graduate advisors. And so hopefully you're sticking with me. One of the other things that I think is a unique-ish feature to graduate advising is that graduate program directors on our campus are typically able to make their own degree audit exceptions, which may or may not be the case for undergraduate advisors. And so if you for example, don't have a lockstep graduate program, but you have a graduate program with a lot of electives in it. It may be that you are the one going in and applying an elective to a certain course to the elective spot in the degree audit. And so this is one area where I think additional support may be helpful to you as a graduate advisor. And Christy Graham in our office is happy to provide one-on-one training where she can go in and look at your specific program, all of the degree audits, and give you feedback on how to provide those exceptions where that's appropriate. I know that there was one particular thing that I consistently did wrong when I was the graduate program director, and it took a long conversation with Christy for me to figure it out. So please use Christy as a resource to you. She's phenomenal. She knows what she's doing, and she's happy to help. I promise I'm getting to the near the end here, but please let me know if you have any questions as we continue to progress. Another policy that I don't know is common knowledge is that we require that all graduate program requirements are completed within an 8-year window, but we do provide an exception avenue for that. And so we know that graduate students, many are working professionals, and they may start a graduate degree and plan to take one class at a time. And then life gets in the way, and all of a sudden it's been 2 years, and suddenly those courses start to fall off of that 8-year window. So we do have an 8-year exception request, and I review all of those requests as the associate dean. We want you as the graduate program to provide a rationale and an explanation for why we should grant this request. We do want to make sure that graduate programs and graduate degrees are current and they're rigorous as necessary. And so we want to hear from you as the program that you actually support that. And we also require a degree completion plan in that request form. So that is an opportunity available to you. If you have a student who has not been in graduate classes for 10 years, you certainly don't have to tell them that all is lost. There is a way to request that exception. And then, okay, last but not least, graduate students do also have to apply to graduate. We get a ton of questions about this in the graduate college. So we would love for all of you as graduate advisors to help us answer these questions as they come up. They apply to graduate just like our undergraduate students do in the graduation and commencement card in my Missouri State. The deadline, the posted deadline is the first week of classes in the semester that they plan to graduate, but it must be by March 31st or October 31st if they want their name in the program and plan to walk. And then students, of course, must apply for graduate certificates too. And a very common graduate student request that we get is that they defer when they are planning to walk in commencement, whether that's because they're international students and they want their family to be here, or there's life circumstances, and we certainly accommodate that request whenever we can. So let's see, I have a few things in the chat. What if they graduate in the summer? They can select which, they can opt to walk in the fall commencement or the next spring commencement. We often see students walking in May and don't actually graduate until summer. So that's certainly available to them. Graduation is a big deal. It's a big deal at every level. We want graduate students to be able to celebrate that graduation. So we'll accommodate them walking in whatever ceremony we can get them to. And as you're advising your graduate students, tell them all to get in my line rather than Julie's line, so I can be the one to hood them, because it's one of my favorite parts of the job. All right, I am going to stop talking now and see if you have any questions, feedback for me, or if Ross has any other housekeeping items. I will stop talking now and turn it over to all of you.
Okay, well, I'll pause for a moment, so anyone who has questions can either come off of mute, or again, please feel free to use the chat feature for any questions.
But go ahead.
I'm the one who has a couple of students who are planning to finish their thesis and graduate in the summer. Do they still need to submit their to declare their intention to graduate by March the 31st?
If they want to walk in the May commencement, yes.
So that's basically just for the commencement.
For the program, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I also had sorry.
No, go ahead.
I also have actually a question for Ross, if I may ask.
Yeah.
It used to be the case in the past that we had like a Master Advisors refresher meeting. Are those still existing?
So we have not had a refresher workshop since we started utilizing the Most Aid Advising YouTube channel. One of the reasons we offered those refresher workshops was it was a good opportunity for individuals to receive like 2 or 3 hours of credit at one time. And since we've done the YouTube channel, we haven't offered those. With that being said, that's definitely something I can think about for the fall semester, bringing those back to allow people to attend one workshop to get a lot of information at once as far as new policies and things of that nature.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Ross, I see a question in chat from Campbell. If students are unsure of which graduate program to pursue, is there a person we could direct them to? Yes, please send them to the graduate college. We would love to talk to them. I will tell you, we have 200 graduate programs on campus if you consider graduate certificates. So of course, nobody in the graduate college is an expert in all of those, but we can absolutely help get them to the right person. We can also connect them to graduate program directors in an area. Sometimes one of you is the best person to talk to about a graduate program, but if you don't know where to send them to the graduate college. Julie and I both love to meet with prospective students. We'll have a new coordinator for marketing and recruitment who will also be doing that. So please send them to the graduate college. Deadline in summer for students complete all requirements if they participate in May commencement, but finish in the summer. Okay, so Antoinette, in this case, they would need to apply for graduation for the summer and indicate that they're planning to walk in May, but then they would adhere to any completion requirements for summer deadlines. So if they're doing a thesis, for example, I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but it's posted on our website and it's posted in the thesis Blackboard course. They would just need to meet the summer deadlines for all of that. So they're able to walk, but then we verify that they've actually met all of their degree requirements, if that makes sense. Any other questions? Any other way I can help?
Okay, well, Carissa, I will echo what you hopefully have seen in the chat. Thank you. This has been great information. Again, we appreciate the partnership as well and offering advisor training and development for graduate advisors. So hopefully we will see you all again on Wednesday, May 1st via Zoom, 12 to 1 for our last advisor forum. Good luck with the busy advising season and let us know if we can do anything to help out. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.